This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that.
You're just kidding.
I'm just kidding.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the...
So there I was, inverted, doing a ridge cross on the Run for the Roses on my first red flag, second week, and it turns out that the ground on the other side, I was pulling about 4 G's down, the ground on the other side was 1,500 feet closer than where I started.
Oh! That'll get your attention. And that's how all great aviation tales begin. Greetings, everybody. Repeat here. Coming to you from New Hampshire today. We're with Gunny and my co-host, Fig.
Hello, hello. Good to be here again. Good to see you, Gunny. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Indeed. So don't always use names, but Gunny's, that's his call sign. And you may know him from the FlyWire channel on YouTube. So that is none other than Scott Perdue. We are thrilled that you could join us, sir. We really appreciate that. So, oh my. So what airplane were you in when you did that? Was that a Phantom? Or?
It was a Phantom. It was an F4.
Okay.
And like I said, I was in my first red flag, but it was the second week, And so the first one, you're just kind of getting used to things and all that. And the second week, they're picking up the pace, you're dropping live and stuff like that. The crucial thing in my intro there is it was the Run for the Roses.
What does that mean? What does that mean, guy?
It's over. You're going home.
Okay.
So in other words, you've already hit the range. You hit the 70 series range. You're coming back over the farms, which is just north of the big box, Area 51, and you're heading back home to join the conga line going into Nellis. So we've been bounced a lot by these by the red air, and what they've been doing is hanging on the ridges. So when you do a ridge cross, they tap you, when you're just doing the ridge cross, so you don't see them, and okay, I got their number.
Sneaky bastards.
Sneaky bastards. I'm gonna deal with them. So coming up, as I remember, it's Worthington is the name of the mountain. It's on the eastern side of the farms, and if you've been to Red Flag, just north of the big box, Area 51, there's these great big circular farms. Where they
big crop circles.
Crop circles. They irrigate it.
Yeah.
It's right by Rachel, Nevada, and we're screaming across the past port site. We're screaming across the deck, 100 feet, doing the speed of heat. I mean, we're literally probably 550, 600 knots, and Worthington's a pretty tall mountain. So you sneak up a little bit, and then we do a ridge cross the other side. So I do an initial pull down and get my nose going down, and then I unload a little bit and pause. So I'm looking for where are the bad guys? Well, they're already gone because they have a lot less gas than we do. So I realized that, it's not that I realized that at that time, but I pull the nose down and I roll out and there's nobody there. That's great. And I realized, oh no, there's the desert is a lot closer than it was when I started this pull.
Ground's coming up fast.
The ground is coming up a lot. Really faster than is very comfortable. And so what I did was we were still doing probably better than 500 knots. I planted that stick all the way to the C-pan. And it's just whoosh, just like that. The airplane goes like this. And what I remember seeing was cactus out of my peripheral vision.
Oh, shit.
So what fortunate that for me and my kids, actually, that I hit a valley. I went right into a little bit of a valley. The cactus are up here, and I wasn't a statistic. And I climb out, and I'm on the wing. So I was in perfect formation when we started this. And then when I did that, I was down to, I want to say 210 knots. I burned over 200 plus knots just like that. You know, it was the monster brake turn. And lead calls out, says, "Where the hell are you?" I said, "I'm at 2.6 for a mile and a half. So I'll catch up."
I'll come.
Guns.
Did you have a backseater? Did you have a Wizzo?
I did. And
was he clenched up, or was he screaming it?
So here's what happened with that. The Keymaster is who I flew with, and we probably had about 50 or 60 hours together. So we're very comfortable as a crew at this point. And we communicated when I pulled down and I rolled out and I realized that was going on. He asked me, "Are we going to make it? Are we going to avoid the ground?" And I said, "Yes, we're going to avoid the ground. Don't eject us." Okay. So we didn't, because he had command ejection. And he didn't do it, and we did. We climbed out. I rejoined on lead. We landed. And back in those days, you know, you had a little tape recorder with a plug into the audio system. So that's how basically you debriefed, because there weren't any fancy tape recorders or, video recorders. Yeah, none of that. No HUD tape. There was no HUDs, but at least we didn't have them. So we went back to the hotel, and getting ready for dinner, we played the tape. Okay. Yeah. So here's what the tape said. It says, remember what I just told you our communication was, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Are we going to make it? Yes, we're going to be fine. Don't eject us. And we played the tape, and he said, "Are we?" And I said, "We are. We are."
So it's abbreviated. Yes. That's pretty awesome. That's good. That's crew communication, though, right?
That's crew communication. We actually communicated to each other.
Yes.
But the words that were said were not what the communication was.
When you're doing 550 knots and the ground's coming at quick, there is time for a lot of verbiage, right?
Not much time at all. Not much time at all. Remember the campus? I still see him right here.
Yes.
And for our non-tactical aviation listeners, that's how it's done in a tactical aircraft. You pull up and then you roll inverted to pull back down the other side of a mountain so that you aren't pushing negative G's and pushing a bunch of blood to your head. That would be extremely uncomfortable. So you're always trying to keep positive G's on the jet. So that's why he's describing it like that. Oh.
Yeah.
And then a lot more positive G's on the backside.
Yeah. My big lesson learned was military crest, pull over, roll out, I'm not going to hug the other side.
Right. Right. That reminds me of just a real quick story. I did that one day. We were coming across, I had a grunt company battalion commander in my back seat. I was showing him what marine aviation could do. And we crossed the Salton Sea and went up the mountains on the west side of that. And I rolled inverted. And as I just about to pull down, I had, 10 or 12 hang gliders right in my windscreen.
Yes, I had the exact same thing.
Whoa.
Exact same thing. Same spot.
Yeah. Terrifying.
Yes.
Good hang gliding location, except that it's on a low altitude military training route there,
on
folks.
On a VR route. Hang gliders apparently don't check NOTAMs. It's weird. Right?
Yeah. What are the odds? Oh, goodness. Well, let's back up a little if we could, sir. How is it you became interested in aviation?
Well, my dad, I grew up with it. My folks said my first word was pilot.
Nice.
I don't know. I don't remember. So my dad was he went through the civilian piloting program prior to World War II. And then during the war, he joined the Marine Corps and was a Marine pilot. And so he'd always loved flying. After the war, he was he spent a little time as a commercial pilot for a preacher, actually, a traveling preacher. And then he was a salesman, but he always loved flying. And I grew up, we always went on vacations in airplanes. After a while, he was a partner in an outfit called Flying 10 in San Antonio. They had 3 Bonanzas. They had a F-33A, an A-36, and a V-35B. And the V-35B actually was 440 Hotel. And I tried to buy it from the guy who bought it from Flying 10. And if you've seen a lot of my videos, the Special D video I did was about 440 Hotel. That was a spectacularly bad spatial disorientation accident, fatal accident. So anyway, he had a steerman too, and this is actually his second steerman, 476. The first one he owned with another fella who crashed it, and then he bought this one, and at some point I spent about 10 years restoring it. So I love flying. It's one of the things that he and I shared closely. You know, we would actually trade off and takeoffs and the steerman. That was a fun thing. He was always better at 3-point landings than I was, and I was better at wheel landings. So,
What did your dad fly in the Marine Corps?
well, so that's an interesting story there. I probably have some of his genes in that he had done the CPT program, right? So he had his pilot license, and the whole reason for the civilian pilot training program was to generate pilots that we could just jump right in and serve. So when just after the war started, he went to the Air Force and did a flight physical, and he was a cocky guy, and they did the colorblind test, and he could see the numbers, but he thought this was bogus, and he just effed with the guy doing the test.
Yeah.
And it was not a good plan because the guy doing the test had probably 100, 150 other guys. He didn't have a lot of time or a lot of patience. And he says, "You failed."
Wow.
And so at that point, he's like, okay, he's not going to be a pilot. He was set back on his heels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he joined the Civilian Construction Corps and built the airfield at Trinidad, the island on Trinidad. And on the way back, he's on the fantail of this freighter, I guess it was, and a U-boat took a shot at him. And he used to tell the stories on the fantail, and he all of a sudden all these people start yelling, and there's a bubble trail there. The boat takes a real sharp turn, and there's a bubble trail right by his face.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when he got back from that, he joined the Marine Corps. Boom, as an enlisted guy. And,
Okay.
And he still wanted to fly, so he always he actually knew Morse code. So instead of going with his platoon to Tarawa, he stayed as a radio operator and went to Cherry Point. And they had Cubs there or close to there for rent. So he flew and eventually talked himself into pilot training and finished pilot training at the end of the war in Corpus. So he actually never flew anything more than the SNJ. He wanted to fly the Corsair real bad, but he didn't get a chance.
Oh, that's awesome though. To finally get himself into flight school and even that's fantastic. Oh, very cool. And then always flying. That's great. That's wonderful that you just, you grew up around it. Do you remember when you first soloed? And
oh yeah, I do. Yeah. I was it fits with my Coast Guard story. Sticks isn't around right now, right?
No,
he ain't on yet. I don't know if he's watching on Facebook or anything. Haven't heard from him yet.
Okay.
It's okay.
So
let him have it.
Should I start with this Coast Guard story?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Okay, because this leads into how I started flying. I graduated high school early, about a year early, and I'd always worked in the summers. I worked for a construction company, and I delivered newspapers since I was in 5th grade and everything. In '74, there was this big recession thing going on.
Oh yeah.
And I couldn't get a job anywhere. So what I ended up doing was just drinking beer every night.
All right.
And
that's a good alternative.
It's a good alternative, and except for you wake up in the morning. Every morning I'd wake up to the Brady Bunch on TV, and after a while I just couldn't handle it anymore. I mean, I'm not doing anything. All I'm doing is getting drunk. So I went downtown to the Recruiter, and back in those days, all the recruiters were on downtown, usually on the same floor, and it's usually in the same building where the MEP station, where you do your medical and all that,
Right.
is in the bottom. So I went up there and I went to the Coast Guard because a friend of mine from high school had joined the Coast Guard. He told great stories about, hey, I'm on this boat that the surf hits it and it'll roll around, and it just sounded like a lot of fun. So I'm not a boat guy anyway. But so anyway, I went to the Coast Guard. I spent about an hour and a half talking to these guys. It's like, great. They said, you're just the kind of guy we want. And I said, well, great. When can I start? And they said, oh, it's going to be at least 6 months before we have room for you. And I said, 6 months?
That's a long time.
Dead. Yeah, it's a long time. I'm on a dead end here. This is not good.
I can't take that much more of Marcia and Greg and Peter.
Yeah. So I wasn't good enough for the Coast Guard. And I walked down the hallway and I'm going, geez, what am I going to do? And I passed the Marine recruiter office. My dad was a Marine. I think when I was younger, I wanted to be a Marine. So I stopped and I looked inside. And there's this guy behind, there's some people waiting in couches, and behind this office with a big window, guy had stripes from here to there and medals from like that. Looked up at me and he looked back down and he looked up again, and he walked out at a quick pace out of the office, shook my hand, drug me into the office, and in 2 days I was in San Diego. Get my hair straight.
Wow.
Now that's more like it right there.
That's how you join the Marine Corps.
That's how you join the Marine Corps.
Just walk by the office too slowly.
And before you know it, your feet are on the painted feet and they're shaving your head.
Right.
You don't have a choice. So fast forward a couple of years, I'm in Parris Island, and what I want to do is fly fighters. And I know I got to go to college and do all that. So I'm trying to get all that done. And I joined the Hunter Army Airfield Aero Club in Savannah.
Yeah.
PI is not a big drive, and that's where I started flying in a 150, Cessna 150. They have a 10,000 foot runway, and the guy I was flying with, I think he was 300 pounds. Enormous, because I'm in a 150 and I'm flying like this because he takes up 3/4 of the room. And when I got to solo, it was summertime, and you can think of 150 it's way over gross. I'm sure we were way over gross.
Yeah.
But 10,000 feet of runway,
Using it all, huh?
Yeah, it'll fly. So time to solo, he gets out of the airplane. And what I remember is when I put the power to it, man, and all of a sudden, woof,
it's like a rocket.
Yeah, it was
like a rocket ship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a little rocket ship. That's awesome. I've been to Hunter Army Airfield multiple times actually.
Yeah.
So what were you doing in Parris Island? What was your you weren't in the drill field, were you?
No, I wasn't. I was when I was at Pendleton. My first assignment was in Pendleton. This is back in the Carter days, and there was not a lot going on. And I was a grunt originally, and nothing was going on. I mean, we weren't even training, and they stuck me on the prisoner run between Pendleton and San Diego. So I'm the guy in the cattle car with the wooden baton trying to keep these guys in order between, the drunks and all that stuff.
Oh my
going
gosh.
between places. And I'm like, this is not working out for me.
Oh,
So
is that what you signed up for?
Yes, I want to have something going on.
Yeah.
So I made friends with the company clerk, and so I talked him into looking and see what I could qualify for based on my test scores, and it was computers. So he wangled an assignment for me to go to Iwakuni, Japan,
Hey.
as a computer guy, and so I went to Six Fask and Iwakuni in '75. So
Outstanding.
from Iwakuni, I went to PI.
Okay.
They were talking about, you're going to go and because I was a NCO at that point, and you're going to be a DI. But my MOS was critical when I got to PI, so that's what I did. Didn't learn how to shout at a wall.
Well, that's okay. It probably gave you extra time for the flying part.
It did. I'm
Right?
sure
Yeah.
I would not have had time if I was DI.
No, those guys that's very busy. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we chatted the other day. You told me an interesting story about your time at Iwakuni, though, out PTing along the seawall. Fig, remember running around the seawall out there
Yes.
doing your?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah. Well, he was out for a jog on the seawall one day himself, and things got colorful.
Yeah, I'll tell you that story, but I want to tell you another one about the seawall.
Okay.
So when I was stationed in Iwakuni, I got a whole bunch of licenses to drive, because
Sure.
you had to get a ticket to drive every different kind of vehicle. So we had a Typhoon. I had the Jeep. I had the company Jeep under my control during this Typhoon. So what we did was it was one of those M151 Jeeps, which is got the swing axles and the rear. So if you got it in a real tight circle, it would hump over, not flip over, but it would hump over, and you can do a real tight spin. So what we did was I think 3 or 4 of us got in the Jeep in the middle of the Typhoon, board, and we drive up. There's a road, the seawall's up here, and then it goes down, and there's a little bit of a ditch, I guess it is, the road, and then the runway. So we're driving along the runway, and the waves are crashing over us, throwing water over us and stuff like that. We didn't think anything of it. It's just a Typhoon. What is that?
Yeah, just Typhoon. No big deal.
Yeah.
So go back to the story. I'm running the seawall, and what I want to do is I want to fly fighters. So I spent a lot of time looking at watching Harriers, and they had F4s there. They had A6s and A4s as well. So I was at Barrack 1672 on the other side of the base for a long time, and right outside the barracks was the hard pan where the Harriers would do their hover practice.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time watching probably lost some of my hearing at that point, watching the Harriers do their thing. Right. So I'm running the seawall one day, and I'm watching ops, and I see this Harrier come in, and he comes in over the water, and he starts slowing down, and he starts, I guess he's running the nozzles out, and he starts slowing down like this, and he's going to do a vertical landing, it appears to me, and I'm watching him and running along, and he doesn't quit pitching up, and I was, oh my gosh, this is weird. So I stop, and I'm watching him, and I see him continue to pitch up, and then he runs past the nozzles, and the airplane falls, boom, to the runway. And then there's something breaks. I don't know if the tail broke or whatever, but it falls over kind of on its side. And I'm just going, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. So I'm just standing. I probably about 2,000 feet from it, maybe a little less, because, and you can't get to it anyway because of that ditch and everything from the seawall. So I'm a spectator, and I'm watching it. And I see the crash truck, which so the Marines and the Navy, you guys know this. You always have a crash truck in midfield on the duty. So
ready to go.
Yeah, they're there in a second. Yeah. So I'm watching him come up, thinking, "Wow, this is just amazing." And then the pilot starts climbing out of the Harrier. So I guess he shut it off, and he's climbing out, and the crash truck's coming on, and it's going fast. And I start looking at the crash truck because he's not slowing down. And he's getting closer and closer to the Harrier. And I guess, I couldn't quite see his driver's eyes, but I'm sure he went, because he's driving right at the Harrier, and he's not slowing down. And he realizes, oh man, I'm going to hit it. So he spins the wheel to try to turn the truck. It doesn't turn. There's an inertia thing here.
Right.
And
yeah.
Real heavy, all that water. So it kind of goes like this, and over on its side, slides into the Harrier, smashes it, throws the pilot off the side, and he breaks. I think they broke his leg, maybe an arm.
Oh my gosh!
And the crash truck, everybody was hurt except for the driver, and he's hanging on the wheel.
How about that? How about crashing a Harrier and walking away from it, and then get smashed by the crash truck?
Oh man! I mean, it's just not your day.
No.
Not your day.
Oh,
no.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Ever after that, when I was in the Air Force, we do the crew coordination brief, and I say if we have to do a ground egress, okay, we're gonna go off the perpendicular to the airplane, and we're gonna meet whoever's running the fastest.
Right.
Get away from the airplane.
Right. Exactly. A quick story on that, actually. So I was in Beeville in flight school in A4s, and one of my instructors had been an A6 pilot. Doing the transition to the Harrier, he wound up ejecting. The airplane had a poorly installed, I think it was the bell housing for where the stick was. Anyway, the airplane started to roll to the right, and it wouldn't stop no matter what they did. So they both eject, and unfortunately, the instructor didn't make it. And this guy, he jumped out of the airplane. I'm not using his name because I'm really not at liberty to tell his story and his name, so to speak. But he tells me, he says, jump out, I get a half a swing in the chute, and I'm laying there in the grass going, holy crap, I just survived a Harrier crash. Okay, I better see if my instructor's okay. So he goes to get up and almost breaks his neck because his oxygen mask is still attached to his seat. So it's trying to rip his head around as he goes to stand up. He goes, oh, crap. So he reaches down and he disconnects the oxygen hose, except that creates a nice seal. Now he's got this oxygen mask stuck to her face and he can't breathe in. He's trying to stick his finger down inside. He can't get the bayonet fitting off. He's got the oxygen mask tight on his face. He's trying to get his fingers in there just so he can breathe. He finally gets the oxygen mask off his face. And he goes, screw it. I'm done looking for anything, and I'm just going to lay down right here. So he lays down in the grass. Crash crew missed him by less than 6 inches. Rolled right by his head. Yeah.
No shit.
So 2 times seriously and almost 3 times died in the course of about 90 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. Terrifying when he told me that story. And after that, he said, yeah, I'm going back to the A6. I think I'll just stick with that.
Don't get hit by the crash. Do not get hit by the crash.
Do not get hit by crash crew. Don't lay down in tall grass. They're bore-sighted on the fire.
Yeah.
They are bore-sighted on the fire. That's
Big
their
ball of
job.
fire.
Yeah.
You're secondary.
Yeah. And big ball of fire. And I will say, hats off to those crash crew guys in the pizza oven suits that run towards the fire. God bless them.
Well, Gunny, how do you go from Marine to Air Force pilot training? How did that?
Oh, you're dragging all my Marine stories out. So
They're awesome.
So I got out of the active duty, stayed in the reserves, and went to UT in Austin. And while I was there, I went through the PLC program. So I'd already done, the PLC program and everything, and did the Quigley, all that nasty stuff. So the only thing I have left really is to do the basic school when I graduate, and I had a pilot slot. And then
what year is this?
84 time frame, and they called me up one day, and I was a top graduate, but they said they called me up and they said we're going to take your pilot slot, but we still want you, and you can be a grunt officer. I says, nah,
What?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. But
If
apparently,
you had another guess.
yeah, I found out that it wasn't just me; it was virtually the entire cohort of that year, and a good portion of '85.
Isn't that something? Knee jerk manpower reactions.
Right,
Yeah.
that always accordion going through there. But yeah,
and
that actually happened to me as well. I was in the 84 year group there and wound up doing 3 years as a Hawk missile officer before I finally made it to flight school.
Oh, well, good on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I looked around and I said, okay, what are my other options? I went to the Navy, and then I went to the Air Force, and the Air Force said, sure, we'll take you. So that's
No
how I
kidding.
ended up.
You usually, you flash forward about 4 years or 3 years, the Air Force wouldn't take anybody for a pilot slot unless they were ROTC or a Academy guy.
I was lucky. There weren't that many slots. As I remember, there was like 70 some odd people competing for a pilot slot. And then I was fortunate enough to do it. I had a license, so maybe that helped
probably didn't hurt.
score-wise.
Yeah.
And then I went to OTS, got my commission, and went to Shepherd.
Okay. Excellent. And then you selected fighters out of UPT.
Yeah, actually, I went to Shepherd at Injet, and in those days, that if you didn't FAR qualify, they washed you out.
Okay.
We lost several guys in my class who didn't, and one guy in particular was a real good shit. He was a good guy on the wing, made it all the way to 38s, but he just couldn't lead, and he just couldn't lead in the MOAs. He'd always run outside the MOAs, so he busted out and he became a buff Wizzo. Oh my gosh, I felt for him after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got an F4 out of that.
Okay.
Oh,
Excellent.
nice. There you go.
What model? What model F4 were you guys flying?
C's. I flew C's.
Charlie's.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to fly in the Marines anyway. It was the F4.
Right. What a cool manly jet. I love
Yeah.
that airplane. The A4 was cool and a lot of fun to fly, but I was actually shocked. I just had always assumed the Phantom was pretty much same size as the A4, and then I saw two of them on the ramp next to each other at Belle Chase in Louisiana one day, and I went, oh,
Yeah.
they're not even close. They're not even in the same zip code.
Yeah,
that
F4
Phantom's
is a
huge.
big airplane.
Yeah. Man, it's awesome. It looks mean too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I got an F4 story for you.
Okay.
All right,
So-
let's go.
This is actually fast forward a bunch of years, and I'm actually in the Strike Eagle, and I took one to Farnborough. It was 94, I think it was. And I'm doing the rope line at Farnborough, and the airplane's fairly new, and right across from me is the 35, Sukhoi 35. So it's brand new, right? And because when you're on the rope line, or when you bring an airplane, they treat you like you're royalty. You know, you do anything you want. They give you all kinds of passes and free food and all that kind of stuff. And you just have to be on the rope line for a couple hours in the morning so everybody can come by and ask questions and see your jet. And so I got a chance to actually be up close and personal with that 35 and really checked it out. So one day, I think it was the third day or something, I'm standing on the rope line and this Russian delegation comes by, with TV cameras and everything. The guy stops and, hey, can we talk to you for a while? I go, yeah, sure. He has the translator and then the talent guy, and who doesn't speak English. And there's talking and stuff. And he's asking me questions, admiring my jet, but he didn't really want to know about my jet. It's just, F-15E is what it is. So he doesn't really want to know about it. He says a couple of things, and he says, so what do you think of our brand new Sukhoi? And I says, I had a chance to look over that airplane really closely, and I'll tell you what I think. But before I do, I used to fly the F4 Phantom. Do you know what that is? Oh, yeah, sure, we know what the Phantom is. Sure, we're familiar with that. And I think they are, because I think they stole one and then made the MiG-23 a single engine F4, frankly, with swing wing. But nevertheless, anyway, so I says, I used to fly the F4, and we used to call that airplane the Double Ugly or the Rhino. And they're laughing, they're laughing. Here's this American guy, he's making fun of his own airplane. What an idiot he is. So then after they finished laughing about that, I says, and we used to have a saying about the F4 is that if you put enough thrust on a bridge, it will fly. And oh boy, they're laughing about that. They're rolling about that. And when the laughter starts to die off a little bit, I said, and that's what I think about your Sukhoi.
Oh, that probably went over like a fart in church.
It was actually great because the talent guy's still laughing.
He doesn't know. The translator hadn't caught up yet.
Exactly. The translator is talking about it. When he finally gets to it, he just bug-eyed. He's just furious. Everything turns red. Boom. They're done filming. Off they go. I don't think I appeared on Russian TV.
Yeah, you probably didn't make the editing floor. Yeah, you made the editor's cut. Oh, that's a good story.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Farnborough and the Strike Eagle. Were you stationed in Europe?
Yeah, we were
The
at
Strike
Lake
Eagle?
So,
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I was there when they had 5 airplanes. I was doing an ALO tour, my Alpha tour, and in Germany. And after that, I did a follow-on overseas. So I went to Lake Neath to fly the Strike Eagle. And they had 5 airplanes when I got there. We had 2 squadrons sharing 5 airplanes.
Oh,
Wow.
because they were new, or because no?
Brand new. We were getting airplanes right from the factory.
Okay.
So within
That's
6
nice.
months, we had 40. I think we had 52, 54 of them. So
Okay.
Nice.
it went pretty quick.
Crank them out.
Like flying a new car though.
Yeah, no kidding.
All the paint and everything on the knob. Every switch was clean and
All
smelled
shiny,
like
pretty, and
no footprints on the ejection seat.
Doesn't smell like vomit. Yeah,
vomit,
mildew.
sweat, and jet fuel.
Yeah,
sweat
And
yeah,
mildew.
That's right.
that's right.
Oh man, yeah, not the faint of heart to step into a tactical aircraft if you've got a sensitive nose.
No. So Gunny, other than the F4 story that you talked about with the ridgeline crossing there at Red Flag, you got any other cool F4 stories? Because F4s are cool.
F4 is a cool airplane, and people always say that you always love your first fighter, no matter what you fly. Later on, you always love your first fighter the best. And I'll say that's actually not the way I feel about it. So
All right.
the
That's all good.
F4 was. I love flying it. It was all manual kind of airplane and stuff like that, but you could not see the wingtips from the front seat.
That bad of visibility.
Visibility was terrible. If you're doing air to air, you got the backseater to tell you what's going on, or a little mirror, and it's
That's
really
horrible.
tough to do VFM
Yeah.
with a mirror. And so visibility was bad. And I remember landing one time in the summers, middle of the day at Nellis from a red flag sortie. And I roll out, turn off the runway, pop the canopy and go, oh gosh, that feels so cool.
At Nellis in the
In Las
summertime,
Vegas in
there's
the summer.
something wrong with that.
There's
Feel that
something
oven
wrong with
breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are certain failures, hydraulic failures in that airplane where you could, you're going to jump out. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And
It'll
in the
freeze up.
F-15, they fixed everything that was wrong with the F-4. I could turn around and I could look past the other tail.
Yeah.
You could
Right.
see everything. And
Yep.
they fixed all the
Excellent.
hydraulic systems. And the way you sat in F-4, the canopy rail is right about your shoulders. So you feel like you're in a hole. And in the F-15, it's at your hips. So you're way above things. The visibility is incredible. And in the F-15, the air conditioner works not just for the avionics, but for me too.
Wow, what a concept!
Yeah.
We never had that in the Harrier, did we, Fig? The air conditioner was canopy open, canopy closed.
Yeah. That's a fact.
So until you got up to about 70% power was that thing giving any cool air. So
Yeah.
I don't know how those guys in Human did it.
I don't either. That was tough. But it was fast. That run for the roses thing, you could generally tickle the Mach coming out if you wanted to.
Nice.
If you had to get.
So my experience with a Phantom was actually out there was at Green Flag, and I thought they dropped ordnance on us. They came over as supersonic, and they were so low, and the sonic boom hit us. I thought they dropped ordnance near the Hawk missile van. Like, oh my God! I think I hit my head on the ceiling of the control van when it went off. I jumped so fast and so high. It's like, holy smokes!
Yeah, it was fun. You can go supersonic. Yeah, except over the farms, they didn't like you to do that there because the civilians live there. But
Did you use? I'm sorry, Gunny. Did you use the auto? Did the Eagle Strike Eagle have auto terrain following capability?
Yeah, it did. and I'd used it enough to know how to work it, but I flew 99% of the time manual.
Okay.
I just didn't. I mean, what am I going to do sitting there?
Right.
200 feet above the ground at night, screaming across the ground. I think I want to be in control.
Right.
I'm a control freak.
Would it push over or would it roll inverted? And
No, it would bunt. Yeah, when it was climbing, it would climb and then bunt, and it would do turns, but they're all, I don't remember offhand, but probably not much over 20 degrees of bank. So it was a pretty good ride in auto, but still it's a little disconcerting because you had flare too, so you could see the ground.
oh, okay, yeah,
and green, it was
yeah.
shades.
So so FLIR is forward-looking infrared for our non-aviators. That's it's basically green and black, but it's night vision. Is what it is. So.
It is, yeah.
Really cool.
And it was we had a really wide field HUD, so your visibility was really good. As a matter of fact, we used to fly. I did a lot of the pseudo wars over Bosnia, and so we spent a lot of time at night, and we'd fly formation visual at night, and instead of a tactical formation, some sort of line abreast, basically you do a fighting wing but wider and with more spacing, and we call it FLIR trail. So you use the wingman would use your dot and the FLIR to maneuver with.
Sweet.
And it worked out great.
That's beautiful. I never would even. Well, I guess we would have thought of that if we'd had FLIR HUDs in our little day attack birds.
Right. Did you fly the Strike Eagle in Desert Storm?
No, I was an ALO during Desert Storm after my F4 tour.
So your timing was perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah.
Our timing was perfect as well. Yeah. We watched the whole damn thing on CNN from the ready room of our Harrier squadron. Our squadron didn't deploy.
Yeah, that summer before it happened, it was time for me to PCS. I'd been there, 5 years, I think. So I wanted to be an ALO. My wife was Intel, so we had a joint spouse, not at the same place, but fairly close. And I went to ALO school in August, so I was in ALO school on a break when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And when I got up, I went back to a phone and I called my squadron commander and I says, "Hey, I'd like to cancel this thing and come back right now. What do you think?" And he goes, "Sorry, man, you're already PCS. I can't make it."
You're out.
It was a good try, though.
It was a good try.
It was a damn good try.
Absolutely.
Good college try. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Gunny, if you said it, my apologies. Could you tell our listeners what ALO is?
Air Liaison Officer. He's the guy that calls in the airstrikes. So he coordinates with the Army units for air cover and air support for the unit for whatever it is. And a lot of people have a concept that air support is Vietnam, and we're going to keep the Viet Cong from the wire. And it wasn't like that at all. And
right.
I was an ALO in Germany. That's where I went to be an ALO. And we did a thing called push cast. So how that worked is you would have the whole ATO would be set up to be sending 2 ships and 4 ships out, and whoever had the weight of effort, they would be getting most of the airplanes. So they'd just be flooding to an initial point, and then those would go to the various control units downrange, who were engaged. So that's how we did CAS, and that's actually how they did CAS in Gulf War II. The funny thing is they thought they invented it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Good try. You just threw out another acronym. Let's make sure we got that covered. ATO.
Air Tasking Order. Sorry, I do that.
Yep.
No worries.
No, that's okay. And we have a glossary because in our business everything is acronyms. We have acronyms to describe acronyms.
Yeah. We need to get an acronym for acronyms.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually went downrange. I fought to get an assignment to go downrange, and I was the Syrian 9th Armored Division.
No kidding.
Yeah.
How about
Didn't
that?
speak Arabic or anything. And it was me and my ROMAD, enlisted driver, radio operator. And,
Nice.
yeah. I got a lot of stories about that.
Well, we got time for one, I bet, or two.
Yeah. Tell us a story.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Yeah.
Well, so I, before the war, I was a Syrian guy, or the ALO, and we would talk to the Syrian commander and the three, the guy who was the ops guy, almost every day, but they didn't like us. We didn't live with them, and they had lagered up by regiment. So they would have a regiment here, a regiment there. They had 3 regiments, and then a reconnaissance unit, and they were all with different little camps, and they wouldn't let us stay with them. And that's fine because we didn't want to stay with them anyway. And I had a company of special forces guys. I had a couple of, I don't know, I think it was 4 or 6 A teams and a B team, which is the support team. And what I would do is leading up to the war, we would just run air. Everybody in the theater that was doing CAS, F-16s, A-10s, they wanted to do it with us because we had the same equipment, the same tactics in the Syrians as the Iraqis. You just have one different star on their flag. Otherwise, it's all the same.
Yeah.
So I had air a lot, and we did a lot of training. And as a matter of fact, a couple of the generals would come by, and the F-16, and they'd do CAS with us. And after it was over, I'd say, hey, I want a recognition pass, so 4-star to remain nameless comes over at 100 feet in full burner and supersonic, right over the Syrians, boom,
Nice.
Perfect.
It was fun. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Well, that was a hell of an experience.
Yeah, it was interesting. One of the so when I talk to Army guys, I usually tell this story. Is the Army guys, they think they're the only ones out there, and I lived in the desert. There was when the Air War started, they took out everybody but one A team, 4 guys. I had 4 guys with me, and so that was us. 2 Air Force guys, and we got a third another ROMAD. So it was 7 guys on the desert, and we were, if you remember, where KKMC is, the Wadi Al Batin is where a river during the rainy season. It's where on the backside of the helmet for Kuwait, and it runs up to Al Rukai, which is the city right there on the border, Saudi city on the border with Kuwait. Okay. And that was the major. We figured if there was going to be an attack, the Republican Guard was probably 20 or 30 miles beyond Al Rukai. They would come down the Wadi. And it was like an arrow pointing straight at KKMC, which was a big log base. It was a secret, air base that we built for the Saudis. And we were living right there. I think, as I remember, 10 miles maybe from the border. And I think my ROMAD and I were actually the first Americans in Iraq. Because,
Really?
you're bored during the day, so we drive. And we went up to the berm, and we're driving along the berm, and we're under Iraq, not in Kuwait. And there's some of those dragon teeth, and where the berm was low and dragon teeth holding a pass. So we stopped, and we went across to the other side. And I took a picture of him, and then he took a picture of me.
Hey, look at us.
Yeah, that was probably Thanksgiving time frame, so it was way before the war actually started.
Glad you didn't make the headlines, though, at least. So, whoa.
Yeah.
That would have been tough. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're come to a point here in the show. Well, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And after the break, come back and talk about some of your airline career and your amazing YouTube channel.
Okay.
Le está gustando mi podcast? Which means, are you liking my podcast? We all know that pilots have a tendency to act like kids sometimes. Meh, some more than others. Whether it's the thrill of soaring through the skies or just that childlike joy of being airborne. But when it comes to learning a new language, acting like a child isn't an option. Science says our ability to learn new languages peaks when we're children. But since you can't go back to being 6 years old, we've got the next best thing, Babbel. Because with Babbel, you can start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks. This summer, as you prepare to take off on your next adventure, why not elevate your communication skills? After all, the skies aren't the only thing you should be navigating with ease. Why Babbel? We'll put it simply, because it works. Instead of paying hundreds of dollars for a private tutor or fooling yourself with language apps that are little more than games, Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are designed by over 150 language experts. They ensure you touch down in any country ready to converse, having mastered the language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel is designed by real people for real conversations. Imagine being in a Spanish market, confidently asking for directions, or ordering your favorite tapas, haggling for the perfect souvenir, all without having to consult any language app. On a personal note, during my travels to Latin America, Babbel's courses helped me experience the culture authentically. I effortlessly interact with locals, from ordering paella to finding the best night spots, thanks to Babbel. With over 10 million subscriptions sold, Babbel is like a trusty co-pilot for your language learning journey, ensuring you're always on course for real conversations. And now, for a special treat for all our aviators and listeners out there, here's a special limited time deal for our listeners to get you started right now. Get 55% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/so there I was. That's get 55% off babbel.com/so there I was, spelled BABBEL.com/so there I was. Rules and restrictions may apply. Safe travels and happy learning.
Nicely said, Fig.
I hadn't heard that. I thought when you started, I thought, hey, that guy sounds familiar.
That dulcet voice.
But of course.
Yes. Oh my. So, well, let's jump forward a little bit, and let me not cut you off. If you got some more great military stories, absolutely love to hear them.
Well, I mean, I've got a lot of stories. My kids hear them; they don't want to hear stories anymore. But I've got a lot of stories. But if you want to move on to other stuff, I'm happy to do that too. I don't want to take up all the time talking about.
No, we got all the time in the world for you,
Yeah.
Gunny. Absolutely.
I want to hear more military stories. I want to hear some F-15 stories. I want to hear any story you got.
Yeah.
I never get tired of hearing stories.
I got another Marine story for you. From the
There you go. We'll take it.
Let her rip.
Yeah. So again, when I was there, we weren't really getting along with the Syrians very well. They said that if they were saying that if Israel gets in the war, that they're going to fight on the Iraqi side. So that's one of the reasons why.
Awkward.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, a little awkward. We weren't next to them. We weren't integrated or anything. So it was kind of weird. And when things aren't happening, and I didn't have air or anything, we'd go visiting. They had other ALOs that were friends of mine and other units, the Egyptians, the Saudis, the Kuwaitis. So we'd go visiting. And at one of those, I was visiting somebody, and Saudi Black Hawk comes by and, hey, you guys want to go for a ride? We're just going to go up and look at the berm and come back and land. It'd be 20 minutes, half hour. So
sure.
I said, sure, why not? I'd like to see this from the air instead of from my Jeep Hummer. And so we get in the Black Hawk and we're flying around, see the berm, and then they turn and we're just flying around, and it's 30 minutes, it's 40 minutes. I go, what the hell's going on? And they land next to a LAVI, a Marine LAVI, and LAV, which is a light armored vehicle. Okay,
yep.
How's that?
Okay.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So they land next to this LAVI, and they go over and they talk to the guys, and they basically ask them, hey, where the hell are we? It really gives you a warm fuzzy. And so the Marine says, yeah, you need to go that way.
Oh, thank God they didn't land next to an Iraqi
Oh my gosh.
BMP or something. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Where are we?
Yeah. Why did I do this?
Yeah. How about this one, Gunny? Did you ever eject or reach for the handle?
I had close a couple of times, but no, I never did.
That's good.
I was an F-15 story. I was a SARCAP for an ejection once. As a matter of fact, you guys heard of the MiG-23 ejection. I just interviewed the backseater and going to publish that video later this week, and talking about that ejection and stuff.
Okay.
And I tell this story, and I might as well tell this story.
Yeah.
Anyway, here, because it's an F-15 story, eject story. So I'm in the FTU at St. Johnson, the formal training unit where we're teaching new guys how to fly. And I'm in a B course, teaching a B course in service attack tactics, or service attack actually. So we're just going to go and drop bombs at a range. Low level navigation, we go to the range and we drop bombs. And I have a 2-ship, and the way we did it is I would fly as the IP. I would fly as lead with the student Wizzo in my backseat, and the other airplane would have the student pilot with an instructor Wizzo. So
Okay.
yeah, so we do our low level navigation. We're right on our time to get our range time at Air Force Dare County Range,
Yeah.
which is right near Kill Devil Hills, where the first flight was taken
Yep.
in North Carolina. And I'm coming up to the range, and the ranger says, "Hey, I've got another flight from your squadron here right now. You can't come here." I was pissed because you're burning jet. When you're burning jet fuel, you
Probably had a
You're low on
time on
gas.
target, right? You're probably trying to hit a time on target, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm right on time. I'm right on my range time, and I have, I may not be able to make this mission effective because I'm going to lose my range time with this guy staying on late. And but Navy Dare, which is right next door, which isn't as good of a range, they don't score as well, and they have different targets. So I jump on there just to drop bombs, just so we can do it. And I do one pass, maybe two, and then the ranger calls me up and says, "Hey, that flight that was in your range time is leaving now. Do you still want the range?" I said, "Absolutely." So we aborted Navy Dare, and we're back to Air Force Dare. And I'm driving down, getting ready to do a loft. Don't know if you guys did that in the Harrier, but we're doing about
Yep. Yeah.
yeah, we're doing it pretty fast. And what I'm going to do is pull up and then drop the bomb in the arc, and it's going to arc to the target. And it's really fun actually to do that, because if you do that and then you roll off,
You could see.
here, you can see the bomb.
Yeah.
If you know where to look. And it was just, I enjoyed it. So I'm in the middle of that, and the ranger says, "Hey, that one of those airplanes that just left here ejected, and they're in the water." The airplane went in the water. So I said, "Knock it off, knock it off, knock it off." I told my student to go home at altitude, one pass, land, get on the ground now, get out of here. And apparently his student did the same thing, because he wasn't anywhere. I didn't see him at radar. He just,
Who's your buddy?
It was the flight lead that ejected. And I'll tell you what happened in a sec. But so I'm the on-scene commander here, and I found it's easy to find where the jet was in the intercoastal waterway, because it's still bubbling, the crap is floating around and stuff like that. So I knew exactly where the jet was. And thinking about his trajectory, I go, okay, well, with the winds, because we have winds on the airplane, he's going to be over this way. So on the shore are trees, and then there's a great big field, open field. And I found the pilot in the open field. Okay. Yeah. So the sequence ejection, the backseater would have been first. So I found the pilot. That means that the backseater is somewhere in those trees. And I'm looking for him. I get the call up Elizabeth City, get the Coast Guard helicopter coming out. They're gonna. I told them where to meet, and told the front seater to pop smoke when he comes in and all that stuff. And I'm looking for the backseater, and he's not talking to me on the radio. Not talking. So I don't know if you're familiar with that part of North Carolina.
Oh yeah, that's where we were. We were down at Cherry Point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cherry Point, yeah, you know
Yeah.
exactly.
Pine trees everywhere. Yeah.
So yeah, big tall ones, 100-foot tall pines. And we always had, beside the horse collar, you had a PLD, a personal lowering device, which is like a nylon strap that you can put around your harness or a big limb or something like that. And with a brake, you can lower yourself down 100 feet.
Right.
So what happened is the backs, I'm looking around, I'm trying, where would this guy be? So I got really low and I could see one tree sticking out among the others. And it had orange and white on top of it. So now I know, okay, he's right here. So now I'm doing a tight circle overhead, calling on the radio, not getting anything. And what happened is the student Wizzo used his PLD and lowered himself to the ground. And when he got to the ground, he called me on the radio. And I said, damn, it's great to hear your voice. Do you have your compass? Because inside those trees, it's like the jungle, it's dark.
Yeah.
You don't see anything. So I said, here's your bearing. It's going to be about, as I remember, it's about a mile maybe to get to that field. And here's your bearing and start walking. He made it out. Helicopter takes him. They weren't hurt or anything, and all that was great. So
nice.
What happened?
Yeah.
What happened? So what happened is it was a fire, engine fire. And the pilot that was flying the airplane, he had previously flown a T-38 before he came to the Strike Eagle. And in that airplane, like the F4 actually, the left engine firelight is on this side of the cockpit, and the right engine is on the right. The firelight's on the right side of the cockpit. In the F-15, they're both together.
Oh.
So he sees the light and shuts down the engine. The firelight doesn't go out. Holy
Shut
rip.
down the wrong engine. Oh.
Yeah. So he shuts down the one on fire, but he didn't restart the one that he'd shut down, the good engine. He's at 1,500 feet, and there's no time for a relight.
Oh,
no time.
no.
Boom, they're out.
No. Well,
So,
Aside from the flames crackling, it's awfully quiet in here.
yeah, all of a sudden, there's hardly any jet noise.
Oh,
it's weird. It's weird that it gets quiet when you shut the motor off.
right. Whoops. Oh. That stuff always amazes me, the human machine interface and the thought or lack thereof that goes into it when they design that no one ever thought, well, we put it over here, someone will shut down the wrong motor.
Yeah,
But-
and the ergonomics, they didn't think about that. And there's that law of primacy. You learned it this way, so it's hard to adapt to something different.
Right.
And that's always a danger.
Right. In fact, Fig and I were laughing earlier about one of our previous guests was flying two different airplanes and managed to invert it at 35,000 feet in a fight. Instead of going to idle, shut down the wrong engine or shut down an engine in the middle of a fight. Because, habit pattern.
Did he have a little gate to shut it down?
I believe so. I don't know exactly the mechanics of it. But he was flying at the time both the F5 and was he in the 14 then, or did he say he confused it with the Airbus? Fig, do you remember? I think he said he confused it with the Airbus, which is kind of weird. But
yes,
yeah, So he's
the
inverted the
Airbus
fight. And
faux
he's
pas.
just got his hand down on the throttles, and he shut one down instead of going to idle boards, which is what he intended to do. Like, whoops. Hate when that happens. So anyway, oh man. So on-scene commander got him out of there. That's nice. What was your closest? I better reach for the handle.
Well, I had students. Teaching is always a dangerous occupation.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is. Let's just blanket statement. I'm getting ready to start it.
They're always trying to kill you,
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the two times I actually almost died, other than that collision with the ground, was in the Eagle and teaching new students BFM. And one of them was it was a guns jink. We're offensive, like
Okay.
this. It was really close, And the guy was actually having trouble with handling a jink, and what is he going to do? So we're being very scripted about it, and I could see the jink developing, and it's getting ready to go. I tell him that's what's going to happen, and I said, don't go, don't follow him. Don't follow him down in the jink, and you're going to go to quarter plane. So what I mean by quarter plane, see if I got on here. So you got to talk with your hands. So
right.
trying to
don't shoot your watch.
Yeah, that's in lag if I shoot my watch. So anyway, he's going to jink down this way. He's going to destroy the solution by putting his lift vector and going underneath the other airplane. So if you go down with him, you're committed, and you're in a much worse position, and you also are going to collide very likely if you're really close. Yes. And so what you need to do is you need to go to high 6 back here and just saddle up again and let him do his thing. Get out of the jink, and then you're right back in the control position, and you can shoot him again. So I'm briefing him on that. Don't do that. And he does it. And it's all happened so fast that, and we're right close to the bubble, which is, we're using 500-foot bubble. So we're maybe 600 feet, and he does that. And it was so close that I really couldn't do anything about it time-wise. And I don't remember the IP in the other airplane, but I owe him my life. He's a great guy. Mouse was his call sign. And he saw it. He saw that happening, and he unloads and rolls out the other way. So we had room to be stupid. And
Hallelujah.
I was right that on. Close. When I saw him rolling off is when I'm not going to pull in. So.
Yeah. Wow. That's scary. And if you do this sort of thing long enough, you usually have those oh shit moments. I had several when I was an instructor in the training command. We were teaching bombing and the bombing pattern. That was always high threat area. You have guys cutting you off, belly up to you, not knowing, where they are, not knowing where you are.
Yeah. Your fangs are hanging out.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very focused on what's in front of them, not to the side, above, or below.
Yeah. Weird.
That's crazy.
You were talking about the loft, and you said, if you roll off, you could watch it. Well, I had, as soon as I heard the bomb come off, we get the tone, and I feel a little thunk and it come off. I would stop pulling and just roll 180 degrees, and I was there. It was flying. I was flying formation with it for a second. I thought, this is probably bad. I need to leave.
Yeah, you need to get separation. Yeah, I mean, you're probably dropping dumb, but
it was a blue bomb. It was big blue bomb.
Yeah, still. Oh, jeez.
Well, I remember dropping. Again, this is Air Force Dare story. We're dropping LGBs, laser guided bombs, and the Mark 84s, the 2,000 pounders, so GBU 10s, guided bomb unit 10, and they're real heavy and they don't have much energy in them, so you can't move them very far. So mostly they're ballistic, and you turn on the laser at the last second. And I can't remember what altitude we are, but we're opposite direction. Instead of going from west to east out towards the ocean, we're in the ocean coming east to west, and we drop and we hit the target, and all on film. And you see this hot 2,000 pound blue bomb go in the ground and then come out 90 degrees.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, we were hauling. We were doing 480 plus. So it had a lot of energy, as much energy as I could give it. And it went into the ground. You could see the white hot bomb as it hits the ground. And there's a whole bunch of bombs under the ground there that you don't see.
Oh, shit. Yeah, ricochets.
Yeah, it ricochets out 90 degrees, and it goes like my head is the Rangers building. It goes whoosh.
Right by it.
How about that?
Oh.
Holy
yeah.
Oh man. Did they comment on it? Did they see it coming, or?
Yeah, they did. They heard it.
I bet they did.
I think they put two and two together, and our tape says, it was. Yeah.
Incoming whistle.
Well, you get hit by that. That's just not your day.
No,
Or
right.
maybe it is your day. It's your time. Your time stamp.
That's right.
Time is up.
Right. Someone said it isn't the rounds that say to whom it may concern that you need to worry about. It's the one with your name on it. So.
Yeah.
So Gunny, did you retire out
did,
of the Air
yeah.
Force?
I did.
Excellent.
I
Well, thank you
spent,
for your service.
Indeed. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did 8 years in the Marines and then 16 in the Air Force. So 24.
Excellent. Well, the most important part of that whole thing is that you started in the Marines. So really, you're a Marine. Wearing you're a wolf in sheep's clothing, so to speak.
So no, he was in the Marines for 8 years, then he retired and went in the Air Force.
So I have a story about that too. So
Okay.
when I was early days when I was in the Air Force, people would find out I was in the Marine Corps, and it's not a common thing. So they go, "Hey, you were in the Marines. What was it like in the Marine Corps?" And I'd say, "Well, the first thing you have to understand," I look them in the eye and I say, "The first thing you have to understand is the Marine Corps is a military organization." And they go, "Wait a minute. I'm in the Air Force. I'm in the military." And I say, "You don't understand. I can't tell you."
That's right.
Can't explain
right.
it to you.
No, that's good. That's really good.
Outstanding.
Well,
Absolutely.
should we talk about
So-
this awesome podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
How'd you start?
how'd you get into that? How'd you start doing that?
My video, my YouTube channel, FlyWire.
Yes.
So, have you guys ever heard of a thing called CompuServe? AvSig?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. AvSig is the oldest continuous use chat forum, I think, in existence. I'd be willing to bet. It still exists. It's not quite what it used to be. But I was, back in the dial-up modem days, I made a lot of friends on that, on AvSig, and still friends with a bunch of them. And one of those guys was a fellow named Tom Gresham. And Tom was he was a pilot, but he was a sportsman. His dad was Grits Gresham, and he did TV shows and all this other stuff. And he was the American Sportsman. I think that was
fishing, hunting, that sort of stuff. Yeah, I thought that. Yeah. That name's
so
familiar.
Tom grew up that way, and so he's really familiar with that and the whole media thing. He'd do radio and TV and other stuff like that. And as a matter of fact, we used to go to Oshkosh. All the AvSiggers would stay in the North 40, and we had one guy that would reserve, like 2 or 3 rows, and we'd have 20, 25 airplanes there, and for a couple of years, Tom would do he does a radio show called Gun Talk, and he would do gun talk under the wing, and hey, what was your day at Oshkosh today?
Nice.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he decided he wanted to do a TV show. It's called Wings to Adventure, and he brought me on board to do that. And this was in 04 timeframe, and we ended up doing 4 seasons, and I got to do. I actually did a lot of the production part of it. I put the airplanes together, the interviews, the trips. I'd organize all that, and then I did all the formation work for the video shoots. So I got to fly a bunch of different airplanes, and it was a group to do. And they tried to get me on a couple of on-camera things, and it was just Tom and me, and we were talking. I was fine, but a couple of the ones, it's like we did a segment where I got to fly the Mustang at Stallion 51, and I was like, I had to stick up my butt. So they didn't use me in my talk at all for the segment. But anyway, I had a lot of fun doing it. And then fast forward years, we only did 4 seasons, but then I had a rotator cuff surgery, and I was down for a while, and I was thinking, I really like doing that. I'm going to try this, and FlyWire was a name that we kicked around trying to do a digital magazine, because I also flew for, I wrote stories, flew for photo ships and stuff like that for a bunch of aviation magazines in the early 2000s. So we were trying to think about, we'll go digital. So I came up with the idea for FlyWire, is that name of that organization or that thing. And it didn't go anywhere. So I was stuck, you can't do anything for basically nearly 6 months. So I go, I'm going to try this YouTube thing. So you see my really early videos. I'm not great, but I'm in a sling. And so boredom actually is why I started it. I had so much fun doing that stuff at Wings to Adventure. So that's why I started with FlyWire. It morphed into more of a safety, channel kind of a thing, where I talk about maneuvers and, because I have an aerobatic bonanza, and you can go and do some really extreme stuff that it's just like anybody else's airplane, but it's aerobatic, and I can do departures and spins and things like that. So, and my most popular videos seem to be the accident reviews that I do.
I'm sorry, you faded out there. The what?
The accident reviews.
Oh, accident reviews. Yeah.
Well, it's always, to me, I always like to hear that, because I learn from other people's mistakes. Hopefully I won't make a mistake like that. If it was a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Well,
actually the approach I use is Grandpa Pettibone. You remember
Grandpa
him?
Pettibone. Yep.
Jumping
Because I was an avid-
fence.
Yeah, I
What
was
were
an
those
avid
boys
reader.
thinking?
Yeah. Those boys, that exactly. So that's kind of where I got my approach from, is be factual. And I actually did some accident investigations when I was in the Air Force. So I learned how to do it. And when I do one, it's not, it's an accident I think that any one of us could do. Any one of the three of us here, we could be in that situation. So when I first started flying, with my dad at Carty's Airport, a little grass strip outside of San Antonio, outside of Randolph, actually, he would be shooting the shit and telling stories. So it was there I was kind of stories, and people are talking about things, hangar talk, and a lot of learning happens there. And I don't see much of that anymore. So that's kind of infuses what I'm trying to do with FlyWire. Is I want to start the conversation. I want to have people think about it and start thinking about really, here's the factual approach: is what might happen here. What happened?
I really like that. I suspect because of the digital age now, people just don't do that like we used to.
But there's some of that, and then the other thing, and you pointed out on one of your recent videos, and I'm likely pointed out on more than one, is the people who, everybody's got an opinion, right? And they're all throwing speculation at the wall, apparently hoping something will stick. And the one that I think of that you mentioned is, the guy had a heart attack and plowed into the ground. And your question is rightfully, where's your evidence for that? Lacking that evidence, you can't just make those assumptions and assertions. Stop. Let it bear out. Let the investigation bear out. There may become evidence for something like that, but stop with the opinions and the speculation. So,
wild speculation, and based on what? You have to have some fact. One of the things I learned about accident investigation is you do come up with a theory. When you start looking at an accident, you start to put the pieces together that make sense. But then when you come up with a fact that contradicts your theory, you throw your theory out and you rejigger the theory to fit the fact, because this is what happened, and just some amazing things you can do based on not a lot. We kind of cut our teeth when I went to short school on that. What happened here on this ejection? It was an F4 ejection, because I was at fours at the time. And, figure out what happened. And invariably all the students got it wrong. And no, it was this, that this fact here changes everything. And you need to pay attention to the facts, and then you change your theory to fit.
Right. Yeah. Which is, that's hard for our brains to do, admittedly, because you've got it in your mind how this came out, and to be professional and sit back and let that come to you. Go, okay, that isn't going to work. How is it? How did it come together? So that's excellent that you do that. So let me. We got a question on one of the places we're streaming to right now. I don't remember from whence it came, but I don't know. Did you review the Asiana accident in San Francisco several years ago? Did you cover that in your?
Was that the 777 with
Yes.
the?
Yeah.
The manual approach.
Yeah, I didn't review that actively. I knew
Was
of
a
it.
manual. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gunny.
I was just saying I knew of the accident, but I didn't do a video.
Yeah. No. No. And
Well-
I'm on the 777, but I remember that it happened, and I remember some details about it, but I wouldn't begin to try and talk about it because I don't know enough of the details to.
They were manually
say anything
flying it with
intelligent.
the auto
I remember
throttles
that.
engaged. Okay.
Right.
And they had touchdown zone set and level change selected, trying to they were high and fast.
Yeah.
And so the throttles were at idle and asleep, and they were never going to wake back up. And they finally re-established the proper glide path, but assuming that the throttles were going to manage the speed at that point, which they weren't because the touchdown zone was set. So the airplane just got slower and slower and slower and slower, and then eventually, they hit hard, short.
Hit hard and broke up.
Yeah.
Fortunately, a lot of people lived.
Yes.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah. So.
And another example of get the hell away from the wreck, because a couple of them got ran over by the damn crash truck.
By the crash crew. That's right.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Get
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. Two of the
Get away.
fatalities, they got hit by the crash crew.
Yeah.
And I know those guys feel bad about that. And then the other, I thought it was hilarious. And I get there's people that are upset about it because it was racist, but the KTVU news crew got punked, and they
Nothing
claimed to
wrong.
actually call the NTSB. Yeah, and they
Holy
came up with these
fuck.
names, and it's like, are you kidding me? You
Yes.
actually read that on the air
Yes.
without? But
Oh
the
my
NTSB
gosh.
never gives away names.
We too
Especially-
low.
Yeah. Oh dear God.
Something wrong.
Yeah, that was horrible.
It was horrible.
Funnier than sin that those idiot news crew, are going to read anything that's put on the teleprompter in front of them. But
Yeah,
they
you're not-
totally Ron Burgundy that.
Ron Burgundy. They got Ron Burgundied.
Ron Burgundy, yeah. You're not thinking of reading the teleprompter.
Yeah. No. Anyway, yeah, someone showed me that, and I'm like, yeah, this is a joke, right? They're like, oh no, this really happened.
Yeah.
Like, big forehead slap on that.
Yeah. So
When
you want
did you get out? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, guys.
I retired in 2000.
Okay.
And
Right.
so most of the guys in my squadron, wing, they were all going to United, and I got hired by United. And I was there in the summer of 2000. I'm not a union guy, never been in a union, and all of a sudden I'm in a union, and it was contract negotiations.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, United has a union, and they're serious about it. And people, they were doing a slowdown. Is basically what they were doing as their negotiation tactic. And eventually it worked, but all the passengers and, they'd be yelling at you when you're walking down the concourse stuff. It's like, oh gosh, this is ridiculous. So I was a N-72 engineer. And what I wanted to do, I'd applied and got interviewed at American, but they didn't hire me in time. United hired me, so that's why I went to United. And I'm on a trip. At the end, the contract was just signed, and I had an Airbus assignment, so I wouldn't have to stay as an engineer very long. And American calls me up. I'm on this trip, and they says, "Hey, do you still want to work for us? We got an opening in a class in 2 weeks." And I said, "Oh, hell yeah," because we're building a place at an air park in Fort Worth, so I won't have to commute. So this will be great instead of commuting all the time to Denver or Chicago or wherever. So I go in at the end of the trip. I go into the chief pilot's office in Chicago, and I go in and say, "Hey, I'm giving my 2 weeks notice. I'm going to quit." And he says, "You're joking." I said, "No, I'm not." And he says, "Give me your hat and your badge and get the hell out of my office."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I gave him my hat and my badge, and now I got to pay for a ticket to get back home.
That's not right. Damn.
Yeah, no, the airlines all do that now. You give them 2 weeks notice, then that is your last minute on the property as an employee.
That's something.
Yeah, they're not going to let you fly another trip.
So let that be a lesson to everybody out there that's thinking about giving your 2 weeks notice. Just make it a surprise. I'm not coming back.
Yeah, just not answer anymore. Well, the funny thing is for like a month afterwards, I would still get calls from crew scheduling wanting me to cover this trip.
We show you out of position, sir. Can you make this trip?
Gunny?
yeah.
You should have
No.
told him yes. Yeah, I'll do it. Put me on.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
If I can
I'll
have
be
my
there.
hat back. I don't want the badge. I just want the hat.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Shit.
Hey, really quick, let me correct myself. Someone brought it up on the YouTube comments and said, one passenger was run over, and the final report concluded that she died of her injuries prior to being run over. So I stand corrected on that. And then there were 2 fatalities on that Asiana. So horrible.
Yeah.
So what? Let me ask this. I don't know how many videos you've got up now, but certainly many hundreds of thousands of followers. How many, or what would you say is the most interesting or most unusual accident review that you did, or what surprised you most? What's your favorite one, maybe?
Well, my favorite video that I did.
Yeah, which child do you like the best?
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen the one I did? I called "Where's the Rock"?
No.
Not yet.
No.
But I'll find it.
You got to see that.
Okay.
So
Where's
that's
the
actually-
Rock?
Yeah, "Where's the Rock"? That's actually my favorite video because I had done a spate of spatial disorientation videos, and all these people would comment on them and say, "You guys are just idiots. Just hang a rock from a string, and you'll always know where the ground is." And it's like, okay, you people don't understand physics at all. So I said, okay, so that's what I'm going to do then. I'm going to go because I have an aerobatic bonanza.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go do this. So what I did is I took a tennis ball, not a rock, because
Smart.
the rock.
Don't need to knock yourself out.
Smart. See, listen,
This
he's
guy's
definitely a Marine. He's capable of critical thinking.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Army guy would have took a rock,
Big rock.
tied it on a string. Sorry,
So,
Army guys. I'm
that's all right.
pulling your leg.
So I took this tennis ball and I put a smiling face on it. I called it Wilson.
Nice.
And tied it on a string, and we did loops, we did rolls, we did stuff like that. And I talk about what centripetal acceleration is and what centrifugal acceleration is, and why that is total bullshit, and why we have to have different instruments to actually to keep us oriented in the sky, because your vestibular system is not going to do that for you.
No.
So that's
no.
probably one of my favorite videos.
We learn these lessons over and over and over. So I'm going to watch that video because I kind of want to see the whole tennis ball thing hanging.
Where's the rock? What does it do?
Where's the rock? What's it do?
Yeah.
I know what it's going to do, but I want to see the video.
That'll be awesome. Yeah.
I had everybody, as I started this, says, okay, I want you to think about it. I'm going to do this, this, and this. Tell me think about what the rock is going to do, and then you're going to see what it actually does, and see if you get it right. So that was fun.
And you always know where the ground is, except when you don't.
Except when you don't. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Sticks is saying he likes the discussion, Gunny's discussion on a V-tail bonanza in high DA.
Density altitude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the Telluride accident?
Yeah.
I
think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about that real quick? Because that's fairly recent, the last few years.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. Yeah. So, real popular guy who was a Embry-Riddle graduate, and he's flying for United.
Yep.
He and his wife are both, I'm not sure if she was a pilot. She might have been a flight attendant, but they're very enthusiastic, very dedicated to
Yeah. Plus a
flying.
very photogenic couple.
Yes.
Both very attractive pillars of the community, so to speak.
Yeah. And so they go to Telluride, they get married, and then they're leaving, I think the next day maybe. And the first flight, because the ADSB shows them take off, and then they go to the north and they circle around and go a bunch of whole different bunches of ridges. And then they come back through Bridal Veil Falls and then land again at Telluride. And that's actually a very important sortie. So usually when I do an accident investigation, I want to bracket and see what's happened recently. You know, what's the path. And there was about an hour plus break between the flights. So then he took off and he goes straight to Bridal Veil Falls. And what he's looking at, and I talk about it, is there's a basin just on the other side of the falls. And that's where the crash occurred. But just beyond the basin, within about 2 to 3 miles, he has an enormous ridge line to cross. You know, we're talking off the top of my head, 3, 4, maybe 5,000 feet. There's no way he's going to clear it. No way.
And he's already at about 10,000 feet, right?
Yeah, he was
takes off
just over
Telluride.
10. Yeah, just over 10 when he goes in there into that basin. And basically he hits the basin and fades to the north side and does a right turn and then departs the airplane and crashes in the basin. And he had flaps down, half flaps. And that's significant. So half flaps will give you a little bit of extra turning ability, slow speed. But you also have some drag. I mean, the half flaps actually gives you probably more lift than drag, but it gives you more drag.
Well,
so
at that density altitude they were at, that was probably you're probably looking at more drag than lift at that point.
Yeah.
Now, so the earlier sortie though, was it an attempt to get out of there and they called it off and came back, or was it like just a quick sightseeing tour? Or
the amazing thing about my videos, unlike one YouTuber who tends to piss people off all the time, he zaps them and then pisses them off. I don't try. I never talk about what their name is. And frankly, like I said earlier, it's an action review. Any one of us could get in that same situation.
Right.
So
any one of us.
That's the important
And if
thing.
you think you can't, you're not long for aviation.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
So I did. In this case, the guy's father got in touch with me, and he told me what really happened. So, and I didn't put the video on it. And but what happened is they had the 2 photographers that were there for the wedding that did the wedding. They were looking for a place to get the shot with the S-35 with the airplane.
Okay.
So they wanted to be on low level with the photographers there so they can get a shot. And that's what that whole sortie was. That's why it's significant. And they were on the ground long enough for the 2 photographers to drive up to the top of Bridal Veil Falls. So the plan was, and I couldn't see how he thought he was going to be able to climb over that ridgeline directly instead of spiraling up to altitude and then going for the ridgeline.
Yeah.
He never had that plan. He was going to turn around, and that's why he had half flaps, because he didn't want to be fast, because he wanted to and had the most time available for the photographers to get the shot crossing Bridal Veil Falls. And that's why he had the flaps down. Of course, his dad didn't know that. It's just mine.
It's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he didn't understand turn radius. At that altitude, that high density altitude, your turn radius, you may be slow. That doesn't mean your turn radius is good.
No. It's giant. Your true airspeed's giant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So he had this huge turn radius and he couldn't make it. And he didn't have the energy to increase it, or he didn't have the altitude because he was just above the ground, and he pulls too hard and the airplane departs and crashes. And that's
And
That's horrible to hear.
that specific scenario, not the whole want to take a picture part, but the high density altitude, big turn radius, pull too hard because terrain, and depart is played over and over and over throughout aviation history.
Over and over and over. Absolutely.
Over and over and over. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I forget when it was, but there's an FAA video on density altitude with a Bonanza, and the couple departs. He's a photographer, and they depart Lakefront Airport in New Orleans, and they work their way up to the mountains of Colorado, and they almost bite it, and then they go into a long discussion about how density altitude will kill you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've actually got that video. That's
do you?
one.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Yeah, you better be in the charts if you're going to be flying around in the mountains on a hot day. Well, anywhere on a hot day for that matter. Know what your density altitude is. Know what your performance is, because you can quickly exceed performance in a light civil. And I think, I could be wrong, I think those of us who fly big jets or tactical jets are even more susceptible to that, because we used to flying airplanes with all the performance in the world, and it's just not a big consideration. And then we get out there and find out sometimes too late, sometimes almost too late. Oh, this was not a good idea.
Yeah.
I remember rolling down the runway. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, flying in the mountains for me, I'm a flatlander, and every time I've been in the mountain, I've been in the big airplanes or a fighter with a lot of thrust. And I need to learn from somebody else that knows what they're doing before I risk much mountain flying.
Right.
That's what's called being a old aviator. You are willing to accept the fact that I don't know everything, and not bold enough to just say, I'm going to go do this because I can.
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
And so,
what could go wrong?
Yeah. So there's no such thing as an old, bold aviator, right?
Yeah. So you wanted an airline story. I've got an airline story.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is actually why I am on the upset prevention recovery training soapbox. It's one of my things, and it would happen to me. So I'm flying a Fokker F-100 for American, and out of Chicago, and I'm in the east somewhere. I can't remember, New York, coming to Chicago, and it's a really beautiful day. Winds are pretty high, and they're landing on 9. They have 2 runways,
right,
and they're landing on 9. And what they do, I don't know if you guys fly to Chicago or DFW. They do the same sort of thing. Yeah. DFW in Chicago. DFW is north-south runways, and Chicago's are east-west. But they do the same things. They bring you in, and they build a long train with holes in it. And then if you're from the opposite direction, like this day, that long train was the west, and they build a hole in there for the people coming from the east. And basically, you do a 10,000-foot downwind, and then you vectors to turn in, slot in behind, and join that conga line to shoot the visual and land.
Yeah.
And on this day, they're vectoring me behind a 7.4. And okay, once upon a time, I used to have radar. I could just, and I know how far he is, lock him up, and I know where he is and how far he is. I'd have situational awareness, and I'm looking out the window, knowing that big airplanes are very deceptive about how far they are,
yes,
and how fast they're going.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, this guy's closer than he should be, so they're vectoring me in really close. But hey, the controller's not going to get a deal, right? Turns out that's not quite true. They tend to run people a lot closer than the official rules say. But so we're behind the 7.4, coming up to the final approach fix, gear flaps. I'm configured, and we're just set for the IF to start descending, and all of a sudden the airplane starts shaking. This is the burble of the stall, and we're on speed. I go, this can't be right. What's going on? I look at the airspeed, I look outside, and then we hit his wake, and it's like, boom, I'm in about 70 degrees of bank, and the nose is
Holy shit.
15 or 20 degrees. Yeah, it's like, holy shit. Right then, just like that. And I shove the throttles all the way, because I'm flying, so I always have my hands on the throttle. I just shove them to the firewall, and I unload and then coordinated aileron and rudder, and I recover. And while I'm doing that, I said, "I'm sorry, I wanted the power." And the captain, I'm FO, captain says, "I just want to make sure you had all the power there is, man." Who cares? So we ended up recovering. We only lost a couple hundred feet, and right back on the ILS, we go ahead and land. So it wasn't a huge altitude loss, so we didn't have to go around or anything. Got our shit together, met the 1,000-foot requirement, all that kind of configured, all that kind of stuff. So we go ahead and land, and that's been my soapbox ever since. Because you think it'll never happen to you.
Well, fighter pilot at the controls. No, I'm not knocking people that aren't fighter pilots, but fighter pilots are used to being in unusual attitudes, and so somebody
More
that's
often than
not
not,
doesn't have that experience has that happen to them without training, without the URPT training that you're talking about. Yeah. It's a death sentence.
It is. Yes.
Yeah. So well done, sir. Well done.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's terrifying.
It is. My palms are sweating right now. I probably read about that. Did you guys? Obviously, you guys did FSAPs and that sort of thing. Please tell me you did that.
I don't remember. I've slept since then. So.
Oh, I know. I don't remember what I did last week half the time.
Right? Oh goodness.
Ay. What do you think?
Yeah.
Have we worn you out yet, Gunny?
Oh well, as long as you guys have questions, I got a million stories. So if it's not boring you, I don't know.
But not boring us at all.
All right, I got an F-15 question for you. So you're taking off an F-15 full bag of gas. Nothing hanging on the outside. Did you ever get an unrestricted climb? Just unrestricted climb, and just tell me what your how long does it take to get to I don't know.
Well, we used to call those quick climbs. Do them a lot. And as a matter of fact, I think on the second in the TX or the transition phase of either the B course or the T course, transition course for formally qualified people. B is the basic course. You do a quick climb, and we do a tail slide as well. I mean, you go through that the entire envelope.
Yeah.
So I have a quick climb story for you.
Hell, let her rip.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I got to take a jet to Oshkosh in '96.
Okay.
And it was the year Snort Snodgrass was there with the F-14D Plus, the big motors, and he's doing a routine. It's impressive. It really is. Put a lot of thrust on the airplane, and remember, enough thrust on a bridge, it'll fly. So it was doing cool shit. But the thing that was really pissing me off about it is everybody that would come up to the airplane, because the Eagle has two tails, the F-14 has two tails.
They think it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, God, I'm so tired of that stuff. So when it came time to leave, I asked for a quick climb. I want the clearance to 15,000 feet. And they said, sure, we can do that. And so I told them, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna take off, and a little bit of a show. I'm gonna take off. I'm gonna leave it in burner, low altitude, and then turn around over Lake Winnebago, and then come back to 1.8. And when I get to show center, I'm gonna do the quick climb, standing on its tail. So I do that, and the Eagle with the and this is 220 motors, not 229 motors, which has more thrust. When I flew at Lakenheath at 229s, we were
220, 229. We don't know the difference, Gunny.
What's 9 among friends?
What's it? So the 229 motor for the Eagles at Lakenheath, you were 1-to-1 thrust ratio on takeoff in an air-to-air configuration, which is what you just mentioned. So it was truly awesome. So this 220 motor airplane, I go around, I leave it in the burner because I got plenty of gas. I come back around, and I'm doing probably 500-ish. When I get to show center, is Aero Show Square there at the time, Boeing Square, I think now. So at that point, I just went whack 5 Gs into the vertical, and then I roll. So I can, I make it at 15,000 feet. I'm going to it ends up being about a 3-4 G turn at the top. So you're hauling butt. It's going to take me less than a minute to get there.
Yeah.
And so I'm vertical now, passing 3,000 feet, and the tower controller says, "Hey, we need you to level off at 3,000 feet."
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I said, I can't do that. Nope.
I can if you don't mind me going to 15 first.
Well, I said I might be able to give you, 5-ish, So let me do what I can do. So, yeah, I just do a brake turn because I still had a lot of smash.
Yeah.
Do a brake turn, level off, put it and leave it in burner, and out I go.
Yeah.
So
That's impressive. So from the F4 transition to the F-15, just BFM stuff. F4 was fairly high wing loaded. F-15 is a kind of a light wing loaded. So I'm guessing when you started doing BFM in the F-15, you were like, oh shit, yeah.
Yeah, it was different. We did BFM in the F4, and it was all energy management. You didn't have an awful lot of energy. You run out real quick and you grovel. And that's basically the airplane.
Sounds like a Harrier, Fig.
Yeah. Yep. Like a Harrier.
You had your one bat turn, and then that was it. You were done.
That was it. Well, in the Eagle, especially the 229 motor airplane, you would have to manage. So instead of parking it in burner all the time, you got to be careful, because if you leave in burner before you know you're doing 600 knots, wondering why the guy's converting on you when you're doing 9 Gs.
Right.
Because your turn
radius is as big as a B-52's turn radius.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you got to manage your speed, and that's the key. Is that it was just so fun to fly, because either they're offensive or defensive. Visibility was fantastic, and the feedback on the airplane. Flying the T-38 and then the F4, it's all about how much the elephants are dancing on your wings. Yeah. And you're max performing the airplane. The elephants are really pounding on the wings. And the F-15 is just a fantastic airplane. You still get the buffet, but it's not, severe energy deficit kind of a thing. It was an amazing airplane to fly.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
We've had another F-15 guy on, Father Mike, and he had a lot of time in the airplane, and nothing horrible to say about it. Actually, it was all good. But he was fighting the guy that broke in half.
Really?
Yeah, Missouri Air Guard. The guy, it broke. The fuselage broke right behind the cockpit, and he was offensive on this guy when it happened. And the way he tells it is well, he's a funny. He tells a good story anyway, but when he tells it, it's
He's
good.
like, that image of that airplane breaking in half is seared into my brain for the rest of my life. It's
one of our podcasts. I can't remember the episode, but he's a funny guy, and I've known him a long time. Well, he tells a good story. But yeah, something you said triggered that thought.
Yeah, it's probably what it would look like if you got a missile hit.
Yeah,
where it hit mid fuselage and it just blows up in half.
Yeah. So we got another question from the viewers, and I think that the answer is going to be disappointing. What's it like to go from transonic to supersonic?
It is kind of disappointing. Yeah. So in the 38, in pilot training, you do your first ride. They call it your dollar ride, and you go supersonic. Okay, we did it. Okay, fine. So you don't notice, you don't hear anything. You see when you go through the Mach, and this is in the old days, when you had round dials, it would do that. And we're fast, and that was it. And we're burning a hell of a lot of gas. So, and in the Eagle, it was really easy to go supersonic. So it was not a big deal, and that's actually one of the tactics when you're shooting long range missiles. You do a wall, got 4 guys out. And we're going to shoot. We want to be really fast, because whatever speed you have isn't part of the missile. So you get a much longer leg shot. You go super.
You're giving it more kick out the door.
More initial.
From another listener, predominantly or historically, fighters are designed with the gun having a little positive cant. Fighters and attack airplanes have a little, negative cant, or maybe I'm saying that backwards. But basically,
No,
a fighter's gun is pointed up a little bit, and attack airplanes' guns are pointed down a little bit. So you don't have to be as steep when you're strafing, and you don't have to pull as much lead when you're fighting air to air. F-15E Strike Eagle, is the gun canted up or down?
It's the same as a what we call light grace. The C's and D's. It's exactly the same. It's just over 2 degrees canted up.
Yeah.
So I never really was crazy about strafe until we got the PGU 28 bullet. So the M51 bullet is the standard 20 millimeter bullet, and you have to be your flight path vector has to be low on the target. Because it's got a 2 degree cant, and that's so you already have 2 degrees of lead, so you don't have to pull quite as much when you're in a gunfight. So when you're trying to strafe a target, especially with that bullet, because it had a max range, I want to say, it was probably effective out to about 1,500, 2,000 ish feet, depending, and which isn't much, and it had a dispersion of greater than 8 mils, which is really big at that distance. So you're not getting a lot of bullets in the target, and that means that you have to depress your nose. And during the recovery, if you don't do it just right, in other words, you acquire the target, you get into range, it says you're in range, you fire, and then you recover, and you don't look at anything else because you're below the flight path. And generally, for a low angle strafe, you get out about 75 feet above the ground.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the beauty of all these jets now is they're so magic, as you know. We put a little pipper dot on the deck or on the target and squeeze the trigger, and that's where the rounds hit. The computer takes all your speed and winds and all that stuff into account.
It's magic.
Pure
It
magic.
is magic. So
It's
when it came out,
PFM.
the PGU 28 it's the same basic nose shape, but what they did is they put a boat tail on it. So it's got the same grain, basically, the same charge, powder charge, same muzzle velocity.
Go ahead. Oh, it's less drag.
The boat tail reduces the drag so much that you basically have. I have slept since then, but I think the dispersion is about 1 mil at 6,000 feet.
That's crazy.
It's
like a sniper. It's like a sniper bullet being fired out of a Gatling gun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's what it is, man. It is truly amazing. And you get standoff. I mean, you could do even the snapshots are amazing. It's really cool. So here's a little story. I can't remember the name of the battle in Afghanistan where Strike Eagle strafes the guys that are trying to. I think it was a downed helicopter, and I can't remember the name of the battle. It was kind of famous, but last minute, kind of a last ditch thing. The Strike Eagle guy strafed the bad guys and saved the good guys, and I was one of his instructors in the transition course.
Nice.
So, it's like, okay, I don't know how to strafe for shit, but he does.
Well, apparently you taught him pretty damn good.
Every now and again, a blind squirrel finds a nut.
Right.
Well, repeat. We're coming upon almost 2 hours of this man's time. What do you think?
I was just going to text you to say I'm good to go. If you've got somewhere to be, that's okay too. We can wrap it up, but I can easily even make this 2 shows. So,
well, if you make it 2 shows, that's fine. Maybe later on, come back and do it again because I
absolutely love having you on. These are awesome. These are awesome.
I could sit and listen to your stories for another couple hours. I'm going to need a bladder break and probably some more booze, but I'm in.
Well,
Or we can
I'll tell
reschedule.
you-
Or we can
Here's what
reschedule.
we can do. I'll tell you that. Why don't we take? Let's do 5 minutes. I think I can pause the recording. I don't see the button here. I know it's here somewhere.
Don't hit the big red button. Don't.
Right? No, I'm not going to hit end broadcast. I thought for sure we had a pause recording, but I'm not seeing it now. So, but if you're good with, are you good with that, Gunny? You want to take 5
Let's
minutes?
have him
then
back.
come
Let's
back?
just have him back. Let's have him back.
Yeah. Back would be good because I'm actually in the hangar and it's 100 degrees here.
Oh shit! I saw you wiping your head a couple times. I see the airplane. I figured you were in a hangar, but I had no idea how hot it was for you. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it's been a bit on the hot side, but
Okay.
better to have this as a background than something else.
No,
Okay.
That's an awesome back.
Well, super. Well, we'll get you back very soon then. Keep this going. We absolutely love it. And thank you for your time. And thank you
Yes.
for your
Oh, you
service.
bet. I enjoyed it. And
As do
remember,
we.
any story only has to be 10% true.
That's right. Well, and once it's on the internet, it becomes all true.
Isn't everything on the internet true?
Absolutely. Although I do have to say, he was a wise man. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, you can't believe everything you read on the internet. But I could be wrong. So, yeah.
Well, hey, listen. If you think of, because every once in a while, something breaks loose. If you think of a good, especially F-15 or F-4 story, write a bullet down so you can remember when we get together next time. Because I love hearing F-4 stories and F-15 stories.
Yeah. So, and then, and then are you, and you may not be able to talk about it. Did you say you and Juan are considering doing something together?
Yeah, we've done a couple of episodes of a podcast we call BS Works, and we have it's sporadic. We don't really have a schedule right now, but one of the fun ones we did was we talked to this guy named Larry Lee, who was flying an L-39 at Reno and had a midair, and another airplane hit him and almost knocked his tail off. Actually, knocked it into the cruciform. And he has an incredible story. He did an amazing job, lived to tell the tale, and set the airplane down. Europe landing, but survived. And it's just tremendous. Tremendous.
That's
I'd like to.
fantastic.
Oh well, so I need to know when that's coming out. I want to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, it's already on. It's called BS Works, and it's already on FlyWire. And I haven't actually figured out how to do all the podcast thing, put it out there as a podcast, but I will.
Okay. No. Yeah. There we go. Oh, that's outstanding. All right.
Well, thanks, Gunny.
Yeah. And thank you also to you from Chase Cole. He says, awesome. Thanks, Gunny. Such an enjoyable show tonight and a great way to end the weekend. Excellent as always. And can't wait to hear more Gunny stories. Never ending fun. Chase actually runs our social media Facebook group and is doing a great job for us there. Much appreciated to you for that, Chase. We also need to thank Dave Hamilton over at Backbeat Media. He helps us put this show together, gives us the knowledge and the know-how to do that. This week, as this show comes out, we're going to put another show into the feed, and it's called The Compulsive Storyteller. And we're going to put one of his episodes in there called Me Too Mom, about his mom becoming one of the first female pilots in the World War II era. And he's going to put our show with Tammy Joe into his feed swap. So little feed swapping going on there, trying to expand audiences in both directions. So we really appreciate that. 2 new pilot patrons this week. Peter Duncan, thank you very much for joining up. And then
Call sign Donuts.
Duncan, there you go. Donuts, well done, Fig. And then Jason Spears really stepped up, and he threw a couple Benjamins in our direction, but he tasked Fig with coming up with a call sign for John D'Angelo. John D'Angelo, who turned Jason onto the show. So let him have it, Fig.
Well, his call sign is.
But explain why first.
Well, he lives in West Virginia. Let's just start with that. And
Okay.
of course, his last name. So his call sign is Degabilly.
Outstanding. Dago Billy.
John
Right.
Degabilly D'Angelo.
There you go. Outstanding. All right, a couple other quick things. We do have a glossary page, so if we've used a term and you don't understand it and it's not on the glossary, write to us at fig@sothereiwas.us, repeat@sothereiwas.us, or sticks@sothereiwas.us. Ask us to get it on the glossary page, and we will make it so. Send us a photo of where you're listening to the show. We've got one from Mount Fuji. We've got one from Vermont. We've got one from New Zealand, and we've got one from New Jersey so far. We're putting those up on the Facebook group. Get those out to us, folks. Let's get a bunch more of those. Absolutely love. Someone said, well, this place isn't that cool. Well, if you're listening to this show, it's cool now, baby. So
That's right.
yeah.
That's totally
And then
right.
some gear. Where are you going to get some cool So There I Was gear, Fig?
At the merch store. So there I was. .us/merch.
There you go. Indeed. And finally, two last thank yous tonight. First of all, to our sponsor, Babbel, at babbel.com/so there I was. Get 55% off at your language learning journey. Get started on that right away.
Muchas gracias.
What Fig said.
I'm really working on my Espanol, man. It's
There
awesome.
you go. Exactly. So, let's see. And then there's a couple other folks. I always seem to forget who they are. Who are they, Fig?
Well, those are the two F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good.
They are.
Dos gringos.
They are indeed. So here they come. Thanks very much for letting us use your music, gents. Thank you again, Gunny, for coming in with us. We
Thank you, Gunny.
deeply appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for
until
having me.
next week. You're most welcome. And until next week, everyone stay safe and check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Hey, what do you say, Fig?
He said it's over.
Yeah, it is.
I want you to kill every golfer on the course.
Check me if I'm wrong, Sandy, but if I kill all the golfers, they're going to lock me up and throw away the key.
I love
And we're out.
That's fucking perfect, man.
All right.
You got to give me a little warning. I didn't even see that coming. That was good. I peed myself a little bit.
Too much information there, Fig.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, okay.
If we get all the golfers. Oh, jeez.
Alrighty.
Wow, that was awesome, Gunny. Thank
It was
you.
indeed. Thank you so
I,
much.
I hope you come. I hope you will come back because I know you got more stories.
Well, we got stuff you guys say or ask, and it just comes from
right?
the
It triggers.
file.
I know.
Sitting at the bar on a Friday night. Oh, yeah, there was this time and that time.
Yeah.
That's the greatest stuff. And man, we are so blessed to get to do this. We were chatting about it at a Harrier reunion and
Here you go.
came back, said, hey, man, there's some good stories. I bet we could probably throw together a few shows. And here we are 71
70.
shows later.
70. Oh, 71.
Oh, this is 70. Yeah,
70.
Yep,
70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
so,
All right.
all right. We'll let you go, sir.
Thank you, my
Thank
friend.
you so
All right.
much.
How long do we have to go until this thing stops doing it?
Oh, you know what? Let me do this and we'll find out. Good night, everybody out on the live streams. We're going to say goodbye to you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks,
Take
everybody.
care.